Alright, so before we start, I just want a little introduction. Don't worry, I'll try to make this brief. Empress Theresa is let's just say I don't really know much about Empress Theresa. I don't know much about the plot. I don't know much about the characters exactly. The main character is apparently a Mary Sue, and for those of you that don't know what a Mary Sue is, it's basically somebody that does everything perfect, better than the main characters, and basically just plays the whole story on easy mode. There's other videos online explaining what it is, but basically it's something that every writer should, or at least wants to avoid doing, because it's just an easy way to make the rest of the story really bad, to put it bluntly. Like, can a story be good when it doesn't, or can a story be good when it does have a Mary Sue? No, because everything hinges on this person, and if they don't have any struggles, then why should the audience be invested in it? Now, apparently, Empress Theresa has that. That's about the most of what I've got about it. It was brought up to me by a friend that I knew on Discord, and he just told me, oh yeah, have you gone down this rabbit hole? And I told him that you shouldn't have brought it up to me, because anything that's brought up to me that's a series, like a book or an anime or anything, I go down right into the rabbit hole. So now I got a physical copy. Can you hear that? Yeah, I got a physical copy of Empress Theresa on Amazon. I gave Norman Bouton, if I'm saying that correctly, I gave him my money. So, yeah, hopefully it'll make an interesting series of videos. Maybe I'll try to add some commentary to it and whatnot. But, yeah, let's dive right in. I don't really know much about it, other than, like I said, Mary Sue character, Paris. Main character's Catholic, by the way. I wanted to point that out. I'm not Catholic. I am a non-denominational, yes, the boring kind, so maybe I can add some commentary on that, if there's any themes that are brought up. Apparently there's a reference to HAL from 2001: A Space Odyssey. Unfortunately, I do not know. I have never seen that movie, so, yeah. If I miss any references to that, I am sorry. On the back of the book, it just, like, I really don't even know what to get into this. The back of the book says, Theresa narrates her own story in the first-person point of view. You'll learn what makes her tick, how she developed from an early age to the last page, and how she became the world empress. And then there's a quote that says, staying alive for me is like surviving a train wreck, says 19-year-old Theresa. But she doesn't only run a gauntlet of dangers and difficulties, she has many victories. Okay, so a very vague start to this whole thing. Yeah, Paris, Mary Sue, lawyer, Coca-Cola, that's about all I get. Read a jewel, thrilled to the situations, learn from Theresa, and have a good time. I'm sure we'll have a good time. There's no author's note or anything. The back of the book is just a brief introduction, so whatever, let's dive right in. Oh yeah, and the chapters don't have names, so that's going to be kind of fun. Oh, there is an author's note. Oh, dang, I didn't know this, actually. Yeah, this is the 2020 version. Cover image by Norman Bouton. I'll get into the cover later. I think I've spent enough time here. This book is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to any actual persons is coincidence. September 2020 version. I'm very simple. I follow my conscience. I am what I do. If you think that's easy, try it for one day. Theresa Elizabeth Sullivan Hartley, the World Empress. Looks like there's a bunch of quotes from our main character here on the very first page. That's kind of a red flag, I guess you could say, for a writer's perspective. I should say I am a bit of an amateur writer, so I'll try to add some commentary on that too. Staying alive for me is like surviving a train wreck. It said that on the back. This other quote says, you can teach millions something more important. When the world falls apart around us, we look within ourselves and find ourselves. Show us what's within you. A quote from brief Prime Minister to Theresa Hartley. Okay, I assume that all this is gonna, like, show up later on in the story. Whatever. I'll just see how it goes. Chapter 1. I'm Empress Theresa, the younger daughter of Edward and Elizabeth Sullivan. And I hope it's not bragging to say I was cute as heck at age 10. Everybody in the family said so. I was the princess in the Sullivan clan of Framingham, Massachusetts. Because, besides being cute, I was a whiz in school and had a good disposition. All the relatives expected great things from me. Nobody could have dreamed of what I would do a few years later, and nobody would have believed it if they'd been told. Prime Minister Blair said I'd still be remembered in a million years. Did you catch that? Yes, we did catch that. Churchill, Hitler, and Lincoln will be footnotes in dusty history books 1,000 years from now, and nobody remembers Charles Martel, who saved Christianity in Europe by winning the Battle of Tours 1,300 years ago to set up the world as we know it today. But Prime Minister Blair said I'd be remembered for a million years. Mr. Blair is not inclined to exaggerating. I was the last person you would expect to earn that accolade. I was a nobody from nowhere. When this story began, I was a little girl who didn't have much of a clue about anything. My job as a kid was to figure out what the heck was going on, and what to do about it. It's not easy when you're young and everything is brand new. Okay, first page, already not off to a good start. I am the best at everything, better than all these other characters that have made history and all that jazz. I mean, it's a prime example of what happens when you do tell, don't show, first of all, but whatever. Page 2. My father once served a tour in the Navy. Sorry, this is unscripted again. He said I had to be the captain of my ship, but sometimes the seas would be rough. I had to learn all I could about the world. I wondered why should I be worrying about it in the 4th grade. I'd soon find out. We're lost on this confusing world, unless we follow the directions of its maker. I did. It's the only thing that got me through. Okay, so here's where the religious themes come in. That part's not too bad, I'll say. I mean, that's something that I think a lot of believers would want to say, trust in the maker, all that good stuff. Anyway. Everybody has pressures. There are 2 kinds. One is threats to your life and health. I had more than my share of that, with 1,000 assassins wanting to get me. The other kind is bearing responsibility for other people's lives and welfare. That's really tough if you care about them. I set new world records in that department. People were sure I'd crack under the pressure, but I didn't. It will take smarter heads than mine to figure out why. Okay, so she's basically calling everybody else an idiot. It'll take smarter heads than mine to figure out why. Okay, everybody, you have to be smarter than her to... Sorry, maybe I'm missing the point of that. You can't do anything without the courage to do it. I had plenty of courage, and I did plenty. Can we get on to why? I'll be telling my own story, which is a good thing because nobody knows it as well as me. The drawback is that there are some things I can't know because I wasn't there. For example, Prime Minister Blair and President Stinson mentioned they'd talked to each other on the phone. They must have talked with many other heads of state, and it would be interesting to know what was said. It's a sure bet they discussed how to eliminate me if I got out of control, but I can't know any of that. It can be frustrating not knowing these things. It can also be frustrating not knowing what the plot of this story is right now. I just know that people are trying to kill you. But remember, you'll learn things in the same sequence I did. Okay, I'm getting called out. Somebody else telling my story could only say what I did in the world. They couldn't get in my head like you will. You'll see what a horrible worldwide mess I had to deal with. My story began quietly with no hint of what was coming. I was home with my 17-year-old sister Catherine, who was old enough to be my babysitter. Okay, sorry, I was trying to put the ages together. She made it possible for Mom to go back to her part-time job without leaving me alone. There's a big space between time and job. Catherine hadn't been a whiz in school like me, and she was thinking of going to one of the many trade schools around Boston after high school. Mom and Dad said I should go to college. Oops! Before going on, I have to mention an odd incident that happened 6 months before I was born. Mom was raking leaves in the backyard when she noticed a fox sitting on its hatches 10 feet away. It was staring at her. A metal rake is a good weapon against a creature as small as a fox, and Mom held her ground. After 5 minutes, the fox walked away. This strange event seemed unimportant. My parents forgot about it for 18 years. Okay, now I can begin my story. Okay. Bit of a detour, I guess. Our house was next to a pond close to the river, where all the neighborhood's kids spent many happy hours looking for turtles and frogs. I was lounging on the deck reading a book on the school summer list. Catherine was inside reading a magazine. Taking a momentary break from the book, I noticed a red fox walking along the pond's edge. It disappeared behind a little patch of woods, which Dad let grow wild, like most of the neighbors. This was very rare. Red foxes were never seen in broad daylight during the summer months. It didn't happen. Then something really amazing happened. It came out of the woods and walked towards me. Okay. Get into the next page. I kept still and waited to see how close it came before noticing me. It was 60 feet away, 40-20. But now it was clear it was looking at me. I considered running into the house, but curiosity won out. The fox reached the 4 steps of the deck. It came up the steps, stopped, and sat on its hatches staring at me. It did not seem vicious, so I waited. In an instant, faster than you could blink an eye, a softball-sized white ball emerged from the fox and went straight into my stomach. Oh. Okay. I screamed and ran into the house. The fox ran away. I slid the glass deck door closed and locked it just in time to see the fox disappear in the woods. "What did you scream for?" asked Catherine, who had walked into the kitchen. "There was a fox out there." "He won't hurt you," she said, and went back to the living room. I stood at the glass door for 5 minutes watching for anything else that might happen. At last, I thought it was all over. I went into the living room to sit down and think, what was that white thing? I couldn't come up with any theory. It was nothing I had ever seen on those television nature programs. Perhaps it was a daydream from not eating enough. Mom had warned me about that. At age 10, I was already conscious of my weight and tried to stay skinny. I should eat something. I went into the kitchen to prepare an early lunch of fried eggs, a strip of bacon, toast, and milk. I gobbled all this down in a couple of minutes and soon felt better. It was too little eating after all. Nothing had really happened. Satisfied, I walked back into the living room to find something else to do. I turned on the television and watched the late morning talk shows for a while. I heard fire trucks in the distance blaring their deep-toned sirens. These trucks could be heard from a mile away. They were getting closer and closer. Soon the sound made it obvious that they were in the vicinity of our street. My intuition told me that this had something to do with the white thing that jumped at me. I went out at the front door and waited on the lawn. The sirens were very close, and yes, they were turning into the street. A tanker truck and a small ladder truck. The 2 vehicles went halfway down the street and stopped. Already people were coming out of houses to watch the excitement. The yellow fire engines had loudspeakers that sent out vocal messages, loud enough to rattle windows. A conversation was going on between the firemen and the station. "What do you have?" 115 degrees here, a fireman shouted. "It's 70 here." "Yup, we have something." A crowd of neighbors was gathering near the confused firemen. I walked over to join the onlookers. "What's going on?" I asked one of my girlfriends. "They're looking for a fire." The girl's father said, "Oh, that's the girl's father. They're looking for a fire," the girl's father said. The temperature jumped up in a few minutes. Somebody called the fire department. Sorry, I was a little bit confused who was talking there. It was hot. It was nice a little while ago. I thought it over. A fox appears in the daylight, which never happens. It comes up practically to my feet. The white thing jumps into me, and the firemen look for a fire that doesn't exist. All this happened within an hour. There had to be a connection. Before long, the fire chief arrived in his yellow sedan. He asked the lead fireman if anything had been found. Then they walked over somebody's property to look at the pond. Nothing there. "Could it be a ground fire?" the fireman asked the chief. Not likely with water over there unless there's a rock ledge underneath. We have to check it out. I actually wait. What? Sorry, I don't know this word. Thermistor. Thermistor. Thermo. I'm probably an idiot. That's like a common term that I just don't know. Thermistor probes were brought from the station, and firemen spent the rest of the morning pushing the probes a few inches into the ground to check the That's messed me up. To check the temperature. They did this on everyone's lawn, the area inside the turnaround at the end of the street, and finally went into people's backyards. They found nothing. Around 1 o'clock, the temperature in our neighborhood had dropped back down to 80 degrees. The firemen gave up. I'm sorry, I'm kneeling. The firemen gave up and left. I was young and inexperienced, but I wasn't a dumbbell. If people found out what happened today, they'd pester me about it forever. My cousin Mary was a diagnosed schizophrenic, and the whole Sullivan clan was biting their nails, waiting for the gene to show up in some other family member. It wasn't going to be me. I resolved to never tell anybody. Not even my parents would know. They'd think I was ill, like Cousin Mary. I didn't need it. Well, I don't really know who Cousin Mary is, so I guess I don't know what that all means. I find it interesting that her family's called the Sullivan clan. It's like a clan of ninjas. It's like I don't know what time period we're in or anything, but I don't know. It sounds kind of interesting. Like usually I just call my family the X family name family, but whatever. Anyway, let's continue. 2 days later, I woke up early and walked into the living room. Mom was looking intently out the window. "What's going on?" I asked. "There's some men parked down next to the turnaround. They've been there all night." I looked, and sure enough, a van and a four-door sedan were parked in the turnaround, where they could see every house on the street. "Mrs. Gagnon," said a police car, stopped to talk to them at 2 a.m., said Mom. Sorry. Mrs. Gagnon said a police... Wait. Okay, sorry, I'm so confused. I'm sorry, I completely missed it. "Mrs. Gagnon said a police car stopped to talk to them at 2 a.m., said Mom. They showed IDs, and a little later, the police left. Dad woke up and heard the same story. As Mom and Dad got ready for work, another police car came around the street, but left without stopping. Other people left for work. The morning wore on. The mail truck came by at 10. I walked out to get the mail, while Catherine was in her room. 2 minutes after I got back in the house, the car and the van drove away. 2 minutes after I got in the back of the house, the car and the van drove away. I think a comma could have worked there. They had spotted me. How did they know about me? I sat on the sofa thinking for a while. I felt I was being watched. Or was somebody listening? I spotted the phone. Was somebody listening on the phone? I dialed 0 for the operator. "Operator, how may I help you?" "Can I have a number for Alice Pizza in Framingham?" "1 moment, please." 10 seconds later, another woman said, "Alice Pizza, 555-8402. Right, that's the classic 555. "Thanks." I hung up, so they weren't listening. Okay, I'm really lost here. I'm gonna be honest. So there was a fire, the fox, and like a big white ball goes into Theresa. She thinks that everybody's gonna think she's crazy, and then, police. Whatever. Hold up. Maybe I'm just stupid. I kind of started to tune this out a little bit. I'm gonna be honest. Anyway, next page. The weekend arrived. Mom and I went to Boston to stop at the Washington Street shopping district. We drove down toward the Boston Commons underground parking garage. I thought I saw some car come in right behind us and park close to our car. We got up to the surface, and a man followed us. We went to the Barnes & Noble bookstore first, because if we bought something, it would be small and easy to carry for the rest of the day. I looked through the books on sale and thought I saw a different man watching me. Barnes & Noble had 2 floors. "I'm going upstairs, Mom," I said. There was an escalator to the 2nd floor. I went along the wall, stopping now and then, pretending to look at books. And that same man from downstairs always seemed to be close to me. He was spying on me. Later, we went to McDonald's, and I spotted another man who who walked behind us into the restaurant. He was there as long as we were, and after we left, I looked back and he was coming out too. But he stopped at a corner. Another man standing on the corner started walking in our direction. We got back home, and Mom took things into the bedroom. I dialed the operator again. Operator, how may I help you? Can you give me the number for Alice Pizza in Framingham? One moment, please. Okay, what is... I don't get this. I really don't get this whole pizza thing. I feel like, am I missing a point here? Oh, whatever. I waited, and waited, and waited. A full minute passed by and she hadn't come up with the number yet. I hung up the phone. Now they knew I knew. While I was young, I had some feeble ideas of what all this meant. My life wasn't going to be like that of other kids. I had to think like somebody important, somebody with responsibilities. I was something special. Maybe I was dangerous. Or that was what the government was thinking. Someday they would come around and talk to me. I wasn't stupid enough to think they would just watch me for the rest of my life. 2 days later, my mom took me to a nearby strip mall. There was a DVD movie rental store. I looked around for the classic movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. Ah, here's where the references go. Okay, like I said, I haven't seen this movie, so all these are going to go over my head, but whatever. They'd shown it on television 2 months earlier. I played and replayed the parts of the movie where the astronauts talked to HAL. The most chilling scene was when astronaut Dave Bowman left the spaceship in a pod to retrieve the body of his dead astronaut partner drifting through space. When he flew back to the spaceship, he said one of Hollywood's most famous lines. "Open the pod bay doors, Hal." But the spaceship's computer, HAL, wouldn't open the door. It was a creepy scene. The summer days rolled by. I saw the watchers following me everywhere. Mom did most of her grocery shopping on Saturday, and I usually went with her because Catherine wandered off with her friends. While Mom was talking to the meat counter clerk, I went down to the breakfast cereal aisle to choose something. Okay, so Theresa, we don't really know how old she is at this point. She's younger than 17, we got that much, and she's apparently a whiz, like a total smarty pants, I guess, at home, so I don't know, 12, 13. I was trying to gauge where, she's going on her own, I guess you could say, but whatever. Anyway, I went down to the breakfast cereal aisle to choose something. "Hi, Theresa." Some woman I didn't know was standing next to me. She looked to be in her early 20s and had a... next page. And had a friendly smile. "Hi," I said with a young kid's taciturnity. "Do you have a cell phone?" "Yeah. Call me when you're alone." Okay. She handed me a piece of paper with a phone number. The woman knew that I was about my watchers. An interesting term. I had often stared at them. So this woman also knew I had to think she was one of them, and I had to be curious enough to talk to her. When we got back, I went to my room and called the number. My curiosity about the Watchers overcame my wish to keep Hal's secret. Okay, I guess full disclosure, that big white thing that went inside her, apparently that's HAL, or she calls it HAL. I don't know how, I only read the TV Tropes page, so I have no idea how I would have picked that up, I guess, from reading here, because she's just suddenly talking about it, naming it HAL, but whatever. Let's continue. Keep HAL's secret. I wanted to know how they knew about me. The woman answered. Her spies must have told her I was at home. I was home. "Hi," said the cheerful woman. "I'm Jane Struthers." Struthers? Yeah, I think that's how it's said. "I'm Jane Struthers from the United States government. Are you alone?" "Yeah. Are you?" "You know I'm not. There are 20 people with me in this room. Can we talk?" My childhood was over. All I wanted was an ordinary life like everybody else. It looked like I wouldn't get it. "About what?" "About your little secret. We know it." I thought about that. Everybody had secrets. Talking to this woman wouldn't be admitting mine. "Something happened to you to make those fire truck Something happened to you to make those fire trucks come to your neighborhood. You were giving a lot of heat. You were giving off a lot of heat. We know you were because we saw it all around you. What happened before the fire trucks came? I don't have to tell you anything, do I? Jane Struthers maintained her friendly attitude. No, you don't. But it will make things a lot easier if you tell us something. We're not going away. We will be spying on you from now on. We have to. Whatever happened is very important. You don't know anything that happened? We know a lot. Something from outer space came to Earth 7 years ago. We've been looking for it since. The heat you were giving off has to have something to do with that thing from outer space. I considered that. Jane Struthers, this name is throwing me off. It's Jan. I'm sorry, I've been reading it wrong. Jan Struthers gave me a moment, and then brought out a point. There is nothing natural to Earth that could have caused that heat. The thing from space did it. We watched you rent that movie, 2001: A Space Odyssey. You are aware of that thing, what happened before the fire trucks came? There was no denying something happened. They already knew. I saw a fox walking near the water. It came up close to me, and a white thing jumped out of it. That's all. Where did the white thing go? In me. How big was the white thing? Like a softball. Did it come from the fox? Yup, came right out. What part of the fox? The stomach. How did it jump out at you? It moved in my stomach. I'm sorry for the name messing ups and whatnot. I just woke up. I probably should have thought this through better. I wasn't very enthusiastic about telling the story. Jane Struthers had to force it out of me, one tiny piece at a time. Okay, the rest of this is just going to be a bunch of questions. How long did it take? Like that. I snapped my fingers at the phone. Did you feel anything? Nope. Did this white ball look solid like a street ball? Like a steel ball? Nope. Fuzzy like cotton. What happened then? I ran into the house and waited. Then I ate breakfast. I thought I was going crazy. How long after the white ball jumped at you did the fire trucks come? Half an hour. Did the white thing change you in any way? No. Does it make a sound? Does it make sounds or talk to you? No. Have you seen it again? No, it's like it went away. How have you been eating lately? How have you been eating lately? Like I always do. Jan took a break to think what else she should ask. This was the most important interview since Moses came down the mountain. Okay, I see where this is going. I am more important than the other people of the Bible since biblical times, since Moses had talked to God himself. Okay, like I said, this is a Catholic story. I will provide a bit of commentary here. Maybe saying that your writing is on par with the Bible and what God's saying is not exactly the the best thing you should be doing. I mean, that's just what I'd say. Anyway, this is the most important interview since Moses came down the mountain. Would you be willing to come in to talk to some smart people and figure out what this thing is? Talk to some smart people and figure... I didn't do anything. Alright, she dropped that line immediately. You rented 2001: A Space Odyssey. What did it show you? It showed me, don't talk to this thing. It's like talking to the devil. Do you have a name for it? HAL. Like the computer, the monolith was the alien, not the computer. I should probably watch this movie. The monolith didn't talk. Does HAL talk? No. It's a good idea not to try to talk to it. Don't stir it up. What is HAL? We don't know. We saw it 7 years ago, but haven't seen or heard about it since. You're the only one who's seen it. Does it come from space? Probably. But that may not be bad. This thing may never do anything. I think that covers everything. I have nothing to emphasize how important it is to tell nobody about this. Don't give a hint to anybody. If you talk to somebody, they will too, and they will never be able to live the life you want, and you will never be. Sorry. No college, no job, no marriage, no friends. You'll have to stay at home all the time. This is the last thing we want. A lot of people are trying to keep this secret. What if one of my watchers talks? Most of our people don't know why they're watching you. Only the people at the top know. I'm one of the few people who knows you give off heat. Without knowing that, nobody can prove you have anything to do with HAL. That's the biggest secret. Without knowing about the heat, they can't spot you or suspect anything. Okay, so it's giving off like some sort of weird heat aura, and has something to do with the movie. Because I thought that she was just talking to her about 2001: A Space Odyssey just because, like, you know, to add some levity, talk like, okay, you know, well, how was the movie? You know, stuff like that. Anyway, I was also confused who was talking. It wasn't until the end that I realized I had the name swapped of who was talking, so I messed up on the voices, but whatever. Don't those 20 people know about me? Very good, Theresa. I'm impressed. These people are top-ranking officials from the Defense Intelligence Agency. Your watchers are people hired from outside. They know nothing. Can I tell my parents? That's up to you. But remember, if you can't keep a secret, why should your parents? Your mother will want to share it with Aunt Jessica. Then Aunt Jessica will want to share it with Uncle John. Before you know it, 10,000 reporters will be parked in front of your house for the rest of your life. Okay, I get. I wasn't sure if those names were conjectural or whatever. Not if HAL never does anything. All the more so. It's anticipating something that hasn't happened. It's anticipating something that hasn't happened yet that interests people. A break in the conversation let me absorb this new idea. This was heavy stuff for a 10-year-old to think about. Okay, so she's 10. Now we get it. Thanks. Sorry, I think I might have wanted to have known about that a little bit earlier to get the gist here. Something else had made me wonder. Why is the operator one of you guys? You might ask the operator to connect you to somebody. Maybe somebody outside the company. We need to know who it is. It's for your protection. How can I give off heat without burning up? Hold on. There was a moment of silence. I had stumped her. Okay. So, I thought that was like a genuine question. Like, I didn't, like, whatever. I'm kind of confused about what the vibes are going on here. Theresa, we think HAL is doing a lot of things around you, but not inside you. It's like you're in a party. A lot of people are dancing around you, but they're not making you dance. That sounded reasonable. Okay. Well, I'll leave you alone now. Thanks for talking with me. Call anytime you have questions. She hung up. I'll bet the 20 people cheered her for doing a good job. There it was. They tapped the phone and watched me all the time. And they knew I knew. And they knew I was being watched. But I said nothing to Mom and Dad. What must the spies be thinking about that? In a moment I realized Jan Struthers hadn't asked me if I'd told anybody besides my parents the secret. They knew I hadn't. How did they know that? One day, I woke up at 6:30 a.m. Okay, this is just kind of weird. Like, it says just one day. Like, what, was this the next day? Is this, like, a flashback, a different memory? Is this, like, a month later for all I know? It's, like, I'd just say, like, a few days pass, or like, a weeks or so. I don't know, but just a slight peeve, I guess. One day, I woke up at 6:30 a.m., tumbled out of my bed, and changed to jeans and sweatshirt. Yes, it literally says that. Before my groggy eyes cleared, and I noticed an orange spot in the middle of my field of view. It was right there, in the exact middle, no matter where I looked. I hadn't noticed anything because it was small. It was like an orange golf ball at 40 feet. I put on shoes and walked to the living room. The orange spot was always there. I went out to the backyard. Likewise, the little orange ball was always there, even when I looked up at the sky. Hal must have had something to do with it. What is that for? I whispered. A few days later, I was working in the tiny garden. I kept in the backyard. I liked to grow pumpkins, which were fairly easy to grow, and would grow 8 plants a year in the small plot. The plants now laid vines, 3 feet long, with little 1-inch pumpkins. They would expand rapidly in the next month, until they reached 8 or 10 inches in diameter in September. I was pulling up the annoying weeds that kept, next page, hold up, that kept sprouting up all the time. The worst was that prickly weed whose name I didn't know that would grow 3 feet tall if you let it. I used a hand spade to dig one of the prickly weeds up by the roots and felt a rock. I brought up the 3 inches wide flat rock and threw it at a gallon water sprinkler can 10 feet away. I'm sorry, I'm not the best reader, I guess at times. The rock hit the can dead center. I hadn't even tried to do that. Okay, so whatever. I found another rock and threw it at the can. It too hit the can. So, what, is her body just moving without her wanting to? Saying, I hadn't even tried to do that. Okay, I guess just wanted to throw it. I don't know. I got the rocks and walked 15 away from the can. 15 minutes. I'm really losing track here. I'm so sorry. I threw the rocks while keeping the orange dot in my eye field on the can. The rocks hit the can again. I got the rocks once more, and walked away 50 feet away. Nobody could hit the can from this distance. I threw. The rocks hit the can. So that's what the orange dot was for. It was an aiming device. It got the rocks to whatever I was looking at. Interesting, but I couldn't see any use for it. Oh, okay, I'm starting to get it now. She was trying to hit the orange thing, and... Okay, I get it. 2 days later, I saw 10-year-old Tommy Kearns walking back from the nearby convenience store. I sometimes saw him throwing a baseball with another boy. Going to Tommy's house, Mom. Okay, dear. Tommy's house was 4 homes down the street. I knocked on the Kearns' door. The mother answered. Hi, is Tommy here? The mother found Tommy and told him Theresa was visiting. Tommy came to the door. Hi, Theresa. Hi, you want to pass the ball? Sure, I'll get it. Oh, I see. Is she going to test the aiming thing? He retrieved a baseball and 2 baseball gloves. And we went down to the street. We stood roughly 15 feet apart. Okay, so now it says feet. Before she was just like, oh, they stood 15 up. Maybe I'm stupid and I don't know my terminology, or I'm just giving the book too much credit. Either way. We stood 15 feet apart and passed the ball back and forth. I backed up to 20 feet, and we continued passing. I was getting the ball straight to Tommy's chest. He was not doing as well. I had to take a step or 2 to the side to catch the ball. Tommy stood in place. Hey, you're good, Tommy exclaimed. How do you do that? I'm a natural, I said. I backed up to 30 feet. It went the same way. I hit Tommy dead on, while Tommy's aim was typical for a 10-year-old. Bad. Tommy's father came out and walked to Tommy. Can I take over, son? Tommy was glad to be relieved. The father smiled and asked, Ready? Ready? Yeah, I said. We tossed back and forth. Tommy's father had an accurate aim. I didn't have to step side to side to catch the ball. After a few throws, Tommy's father backed up to around 40 feet. No 10-year-old could throw accurately at this distance, he must have thought. I would have put that in quotations. We tossed the ball. I invariably got the ball straight to Tommy's father. This went on for another 10 minutes. Other people had been coming out to watch. At last, the father noticed that I was getting tired. This was August, and it was very hot. Let's call it quits, Theresa, the father said. It's getting hot. Okay. I went aside to talk to Tommy. Several adults came up to Tommy's father. One of them asked him, Next page. One of them asked him, "How good is she?" "She's incredible. Someday she might pitch for the Red Sox." Alrighty. August rolled. It was a week before I was to begin the 5th grade, and I could think of little else. Most kids said they hated school. I loved it. It was there that I met all my friends, who were scattered all over town in the summer. There that the girls invited each other to each other's homes. It was a working day for my parents, and Catherine had eaten something. I began throwing lunch together for myself. Mom had brought steaks. There was a new bottle of steak sauce. I tried to open it, but it was tight. The trouble with these steak bottles was that the cap was so narrow. There was no leverage to twist it. I tried harder. No wonder little old ladies starved to death. Okay, that was actually kind of funny. I'll give it that. That's not bad. A little more effort, and the bottle broke. Steak sauce spilled all over the counter. A steak sauce bottle had particularly thick glass and should be unbreakable. Okay, I can actually relate to that. That is good. Like steak bottles, or at least the A1 sauce that I like to get, like that is some thick glass. It's like some beer bottle sort of stuff. I cleaned up the mess and put away the rest of the food. I wanted to think. How had I broken the thick glass bottle, which not even a strong man could have done? Did I have a lot of strength? I looked around for something to lift. The living room sofa was the heaviest piece of furniture in the house. I lifted one end of it easily. But so did Dad. How could I tell how strong I was? I went to the basement and looked around. Like many people, we Sullivans kept lots of junk we never used. I rummaged around and found 2 complete sets of old lawn horseshoes, grabbed one horseshoe with both hands, and tried to twist it. At first, it didn't change. But as I applied more force, HAL seemed to get the idea. The horseshoe bent easily. Alright, so it's like a superhero origin story. Alright, I can get behind this. The next morning, I approached Mom. "I want to see Father Richard." She spun her head around in surprise. What about? What about? Okay. "I can tell you. Or I can't tell you." This is an odd exchange. "Honey, you can tell me anything. Maybe I can help you." "I can't tell you." Mom was worried. Something serious might be going on. But even at age 10, I had certain rights to privacy. "All right, dear. I'll drive you." On the way through the living room, I picked up a burlap shopping bag, sorry, there was a weird space, used by the environmentally conscious people who didn't want paper or plastic. What's going in there, Mom asked. "Horseshoes." "Why are you taking those? It's a secret." Mom was really worried. She made a quick call to the rectory to make sure Father Richard Donatry. I'm never good with these names, like Dotary or Dotry or Daughtry or... Yeah, Donatry. Father Richard Donatry would be there to make sure. And were met at the door by the smiling 29-year-old priest. I knew I could trust him to keep my secret. Priests were supposed to be beyond salvation if they revealed a secret, or something like that. Is that a Catholic thing? I've never really heard about anything like that, but I'll go with it. That's what I thought then. "Ah, Theresa wants to be a nun?" he joked. "She won't tell me what it's about." Oh, he got more serious. Do we all talk... Sorry, next page. Do we all talk together? "No," I said. "Me alone." "Very well, Mrs. Sullivan." He indicated the living room. Okay. I noticed that it says Mrs., which means married, so I assume he's talking to the mom. Right. "Very well, Mrs. Sullivan." He indicated the living room, which served as a waiting room. Okay, I'm stupid. "This way." He smiled, showing me to his office. Father Donatry... Like, I'm gonna butcher this every time, so just please forgive me on this, okay? Father Donatry sat at his desk, and I sat in a chair in front of him. "Now, Theresa, What's on your mind? I have to show you something. I took 3 horseshoes out of the bag and stacked them together. The ends had small bends, and I had to arrange the horseshoes with one advanced over the one below so that the rest of the structures would lie flat on top of each other. Then I grabbed all 3 shoes at once by the ends and started trying to twist them. I applied more and more pressure over some 15 or so seconds until I did succeed in bending the horseshoe about 50 degrees. I put them down on his desk. The priest thought it had to be a trick. He picked up a horseshoe and tried to bend it with all his strength. It didn't budge. I tried the other 2 with the same result. It was no trick. I had bent all 3 at once. He tried to remain calm as I waited patiently for his comment. The thought of diabolic possession had to be the first thought that came to him. Possession was often manifested by super strength. He managed to say, "How did you do that?" "I have something from space. The government knows about it. They watch me all the time. They followed me. I saw them." "When?" "When they came here. Mom doesn't know." Mom doesn't know. I'm sorry, creaky table. "They followed you here?" "Yeah, they're in a green car." I pointed in the direction of the parking lot. He got up to look out the window at the small parking lot. There was a green car out there, a 4-door sedan. Instead of driving into the parking space as everybody did, they had backed up so that the 2 men inside could watch the rectory. There was a blue car next to it, similarly backed in to watch the rectory. This car had a male driver and a female passenger. Sorry. Can you wait here a minute, Theresa? Yeah. He went outside. The window was open in the heat, so I walked over to listen to whatever I might hear. When Jan Struthers saw him, she instantly got out of the blue car and quickly walked over to him. "These men don't know everything. Only I do." What did Theresa say? "I'm not at liberty to say." Wait. Okay, so this is Jan talking? "These men don't know everything. Only I do." What did Theresa say? Okay. "I'm not at liberty to say." It's not the usual stuff? It isn't. It's critical you tell no one. Theresa will be the first to suffer. People will come after her. They'll kidnap her, kill her, or worse. Who are you? I work for the American government. How many of you are there? Hundreds. That's a lot of people. Do you understand how important this is? I'm beginning to. Father Donatry thought things over for it's probably going to say while. Let me turn the page. For a moment. Never mind. I'll need to tell the cardinal. Why? Theresa needs one person she can trust. I need the cardinal's help to stay close to her wherever she is. All right, but it goes no further. Don't call him on the phone. Talk to him in person. Jan Struthers walked back to her car, and he returned to his office. I'd like the cardinal to come here and talk with you sometime. Is that all right? Sorry. Sure, I said. A meeting was arranged with the cardinal. It was concluded that there was no diabolical possession. I was a perfectly normal, good girl. My story, confirmed by the brief visit of Jan Struthers, had to be true, no matter how amazing it was. I did so well in the 5th grade, it was decided I'd skip the 6th and go straight into 7th. Okay, Yep, smarty pants. I get the picture. Part of the decision to let me skip a year was my hair. Oh, okay, I was giving this the benefit of the... I mean, not really. There was a lot of stupid things, like the whole, more important than Moses thing, but come on, what is this? Just let me take a look at this. Alright, part of the decision to let me skip a year was my hair. It started growing very thick after HAL came around. I mean, you could grab a handful of my hair and feel the weight like it was wet. Mom was sure this was a sign of my change of life, and I needed to be with girls my own emotional age. Oh no, if this is where it's falling apart. They moved me up a grade because I was so beautiful. That's because my hair was so thick. Yeah, well, I was growing up fast, but it wasn't because of hormones. I was worrying about HAL, and so were a lot of others. Jan Struthers walked by me sometimes in a store or someplace when Mom and Dad were out of sight. She asked how things were going, and I asked, was there any news about HAL? No question mark. I never told her about the orange spot in my eye field or the strength HAL gave me. They'd haul me off to some laboratory. I get it. I can't do this because of the dangers. Yes, we get it. Like, it's one of those things where it's like you don't really need the repetitiveness of this topic to be brought up. Like, we can pick up on that. They'd haul me off to some laboratory. One time I asked her how many people were watching me. 400, she said. It takes that many people to watch somebody 24 hours a day without being noticed. It would be easier if I had lived in an Iowa farmhouse. They could keep an eye on me from a distance. But when Mom and I went to Boston, 150 watchers had to spread out to keep an eye on me. It would be just as bad when I went to high school and moved around a lot. Jan said, I suggested we just give you $10 million if you promise to stay home. They turned it down. They were right. I wouldn't stay home. All right. That is an interesting prelude, I guess, to what's going on. So they just give her 10. Okay. Oh, she's like super powerful. We got to keep an eye on her. Let's give her $10 million. Is this really what's going on? I mean, here I was about to talk about how if you're talking to Mom and Dad, substituting their names, then technically those should be capitalized, but I think the capitalization might be the least of our worries right now. I mean, honestly, for the most part, it actually had a pretty decent, albeit kind of rough start, aside from the whole, saying a bunch of times, I'm a super whiz, I'm super smart, you're gonna see all my struggles. If you just cut all of that out, then it's not the worst thing, I guess you could say, in the world. I mean, so there is that, and before we continue, I kind of want to address a semi-elephant in the room. Let's talk about the cover. I have the 2020 version, which is not much different from the others. It's got a very amateurish cover, her dressed as a military person, which I don't think that comes up from what I understand on TV tropes. Look, I get it. Not everybody can draw. This is a very amateur drawing. In fact, on my best day, I could not draw something anything better than this. So, you know what I do? I get somebody, I hire somebody to do a commission with, somebody more talented than me to make my brilliant ideas come to life, because I've seen fan art, actually, of this cover, and, it actually looks pretty good, by comparison. I mean, that's, I don't know, they say don't judge a book by its cover, but honestly, it kind of reflects how you want readers to see what you've written. It gives them a good first impression. To me, this kind of, when I see this cover, it kind of looks it looks amateurish, shall I say, so I kind of expect a sort of amateurish story, which seems to be how it's going, but, yeah, that's the first chapter of Empress Theresa. I think we're going to be in for something special. Have a good one. I don't really have any clever way to end this off. Bye.